Yes, go ahead, sister.
Yes. My question was on yesterday teaching for the Sabbath. The question you were teaching on mothers-in-law, I have a question on that.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if someone has a mother-in-law that does not practice the law, okay, and then that always telling your husband if you're unclean, it's not biblical. You're living in the New Testament, and you're not supposed to follow this. They don't believe in the Shabbat, and then you're trying to do your best to cooperate, but trying to make division because they don't believe in the law. How do we handle that? Because you were talking yesterday, and I thought that you didn't give any questions on if the mother-in-law doesn't practice the law. How can someone handle that?
So basically, you're saying if you have a mother-in-law who is discouraging the husband from keeping the law.
Yeah. To not practice the law.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And that hates you because you're practicing the law because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why we have Matthew chapter 10 from verse 34. Matthew chapter 10 from verse 34, Yeshua HaMashiach said something about, he actually addressed exactly what you're talking about right now. Matthew 10 from verse 34. Matthew 10 from verse 34, our Savior addresses this. So that he's telling you that something like this will happen. So when it begins to happen, that person will not be surprised. Matthew 10 from verse 34. Matthew chapter 10 from verse 34. It says, Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace but sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's enemy, one's foe, meaning your enemy, will be the members of one's family. So there will be problems and issue with your father-in-law, your mother-in-law, but it specifically talks about your mother-in-law, how your mother-in-law will be a problem for you, or you will be a problem for your mother-in-law. But what he's saying here is on the context of keeping the law. So this is based on the context of keeping the law, because what he's trying to say is that these people will hate you because you are keeping the law. Because you are interested in keeping the law, they are going to hate you. They are going to be battling you, because in their mind, they think you're crazy. In their mind, they think you've lost your mind. So they're going to be battling you and making problems and creating problems with you. So really, that should not make you to despise them or to hate them, or they are still your mother-in-law. You just have to use wisdom when it comes to dealing with them. You have to use wisdom. So it will be much easier to handle if your husband understands what's going on. It will be much easier, because it depends. See, like today, if you look at what we went through today, I was trying to get you to understand that just like I cannot allow my wife to be a problem for my mother, the same way I cannot allow my mother to be a problem for my wife. Oh, hell no. No, 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 no. No. And my mother, if you talk to her, so just like I am giving her complete protection, just like I'm protecting her from my wife, I have to also protect my mother. I have to also protect my wife from my mother. Okay? Being a Hebrew man is not that easy. Being a leader, every Hebrew man is supposed to be a leader. The Most High said in Genesis 3:16 that your husband will rule over you. So every Hebrew man is supposed to be a leader. So not only do we lead our household, but we are also supposed to lead other nations. That's why I gave you that example with Acts chapter 8. You see the Most High sending a Hebrew man to go and teach Cornelius. I'm sorry, to go and teach the Ethiopian eunuch. That's why you see in chapter 10 of the book of Acts, chapter 10, you see the Most High sending a Hebrew to go and teach the Cornelius, the Italian. So us as a nation, we are supposed to be leading other people. We are supposed to be leading other nations. And it's not an easy task. And what usually happens is that when you lead, some people will hate you. Some people will love you. This happened in the wilderness. There were some Hebrew Israelites that rose up against Moses. They wanted to fight Moses. They were against Moses. And their attitude was, do you think that you are the only one that the Most High can talk to? Are you the only one that the Most High can talk to? That was their attitude. And the Most High was furious. Moses did not even fight them. Moses was quiet. The Most High was angered by their attitude because the Most High made Moses to be a leader. Moses did not choose himself. The Most High chose Moses. So for these men to rise up against Moses and try to, the Most High was the one that killed these men, Dathan and Abiram, killed them and their families, them and their kids and their wives was all killed in the wilderness because they rose up against Moses. And then his sister tried the same thing, Miriam. The same attitude that those Hebrew men had, she had towards her brother Moses when Moses married the Ethiopian. Moses married the Ethiopian, and Miriam was like, do you think that you're the only one that the Most High speaks to? And the Most High was furious again against Miriam and made her to become leprous. And then they started begging the Most High. So, as a leader, which most men are no longer, they don't have that spirit anymore. And the reason why they don't have that spirit is because they don't follow the law. Most Hebrew men are no longer following the law. Because this is what will make you to be a real man. You have a mandate from the Most High. Just like Moses, you have a mandate as a man. This is why the Most High was angry at Adam. The Most High was not happy with Adam. He was disappointed at Adam. That's just the truth. He was very disappointed and he made a statement. He says to Adam, because you listen to your wife. So as you try to practice this, as you try to practice that leadership, people are going to fight you. Family members will fight you. If you're not used to doing it and you start doing it, your wife will fight you. So you have to be able to stand your ground. That's why I was that information today is for you, those that have children, to begin right now to prepare your sons. You may be wondering, what does this have to do with the question that sister asked? It has everything to do with the question that the sister just asked. It has everything. Has everything to do with it. That's why you see, what's her name? Solomon's mother telling him, do not give your power unto a woman, preparing him to know the kind of a wife that he will marry. So, I have to be honest with you. I'm not really going to blame your mother-in-law. I will blame your husband because your husband is the one that needs to jump in and correct this. Your husband is the one that will jump in and correct this. And I'm not saying this for you to go start fighting him or arguing with him. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know. So he needs to learn how to properly, carry out his duties. Which is to be able to make sure that there's order, there's peace. Your husband cannot be there and watch your mother-in-law insult you. Your mother cannot be there, your husband cannot be there and watch you insult your mother-in-law. It is his responsibility to make sure that this does not happen. He has to make sure that this does not happen. That is his responsibility. So usually in this case, I'm not really going to blame your mother-in-law that much. What do you expect? She's a Christian. You will probably do the same thing that she's doing if you are still a Christian. Because in your mind, this girl is crazy. She's in a cult and she's deceiving my son. You, if we are going to be honest, will probably think the same way that she's thinking. So you have to give her some breaks. Don't just think that she's evil and she's this, because you will probably do the same thing if you are a Christian, if you're still a Christian. You are doing what you're doing right now because you're no longer following Christianity. So that's why, you have to give her some benefit of doubt. And you don't approach this with anger. You don't approach this with fight or with force. You have to use wisdom. Understand that she doesn't know what she's doing. When those people were attacking Yeshua, trying to do those things that they were doing to him, he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. He understood that they didn't know what they're doing because they are being used to fulfill the prophecy in Isaiah 53. Somebody needs to put a nail on him. Somebody needs to put him on the cross. Somebody needs to do those things. So you have to understand that I'm not saying that what she's doing is good, but these are just the consequences of not keeping the law. So you have to exercise wisdom. And if your husband is a righteous Hebrew man, if he realizes who he is and begin to, it's hard because there's just not a system for men to learn these things. There's not a system. They may have desire to do it, but they don't know what to do. And this is very well needed. We need this. Men need to be the kind of man that the Most High wants them to be. Because when a man is the kind of man that the Most High wants him to be, he will not tolerate his wife going after his mother. And he himself will also not tolerate his mother going after his wife. As long as my wife is honest, is innocent, I will not allow my mother to abuse my wife. No, hell no. That's not going to happen over my watch. It will be evil in the sight of the Most High for me to keep quiet and allow my mother to oppress my wife. If I see my mother oppressing my wife and I keep quiet, then in the sight of the Most High, my mother and I are oppressing her. Because I can see it and stop it, but I'm keeping quiet. So if I see my mother oppressing my wife and I keep quiet, that's evil in the sight of the Most High. Because my wife in that case is an innocent woman. She's innocent. So if I oppress her, or if my mother oppress her, because we feel like nobody will fight for her, then the Most High will jump in and fight for her. And you don't want the Most High to jump in and fight for her, because usually it results in death. And it results in the death of the man. That's usually what happens. Everything is screwed up upside down because we're following these children of Satan, the Europeans. Everything is upside down. Men don't know what they're supposed to do. Men are acting like women. Women are acting like men. Men are being effeminate, soft, weak, taking on the role of women. Women are being macho, masculine, wild, very aggressive in the way they talk. Women are no longer meek, no longer shameful. Everything is upside down, and we shouldn't be surprised. It's right there in Jubilees chapter 1. The Messiah talked about how we're going to abandon the things that he gave us and follow after the Gentiles. Before you follow someone, look very close at them. Look at the Europeans and see how things are working out for them. More than 70% of their marriage end in divorce. The rest of the 30% are just managing. Some of them don't want to divorce because they don't want to pay child support. So don't even think that the 30% are working. It's not even working. These are people who are just holding on because they don't want to pay alimony. They don't want to pay child support. So they're holding on. That's why I told you that these people cannot talk. They can't tell you nothing. They can't tell you anything when it comes to relationship. They are a failure. They should be banned from talking about relationship. The Europeans should be banned. They shouldn't be allowed to talk about relationship because they are a failure. But they are the ones who are teaching us, and we're sitting there on TV with our mouth open, listening to Dr. Phil tell you about relationship. Listening to these heathen, these failures. You're there opening your mouth, watching TV, listening to them tell you about relationship. The people that were supposed to be teaching. This is a situation that can easily be handled when a man knows what he's doing, when a man fears the Most High, when a man keeps the law of the Most High. But these are all part of the consequences of breaking the law. So we have to use wisdom now and do what we have to do. What we have to do right now is that we have to, you just have to do what you have to do and pray and try to avoid contact with her. Try to limit your contact with that woman. And you have to just approach everything. Don't talk too much so that you'll be able to react properly. Sometimes you get emotional and you say things that you didn't mean to say. So as she does stuff, when she says things to you, when she does stuff, try not to talk right away so you can think about it and respond accordingly. I don't know the specific of what she's doing. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the details. So I'm giving you a general advice, general counsel. And she's behaving the way she's behaving because she's a Christian. And you will probably behave that same way if you are a Christian and your son is living with a woman who is keeping the law. And you as a Christian have been told that we don't have to keep the law. That is actually a cause to keep the law. What would you do? You would think that this woman is not good for your son. That's what you would think. You would think that this woman is going to get your son to keep the law of the Most High and receive a cause. You see how twisted this Christian doctrine is. So, according to the Most High, if we break the law, we will be under a curse. These devils have managed to convince us that if we keep the law, we will be under a curse. So, you just have to use wisdom. There's not much you can do in this situation. Don't argue with her. Don't fight with her. Don't exchange words. You have to be very graceful. You have to be very graceful. You don't like what she's doing, but you don't really have much option. So hopefully, again, I don't have the details of what she's doing, so I'm giving you a general counsel. So hopefully, as time progresses, the man involved, her son, who is your husband, will be able to grow and be able to handle this situation and be able to, because you are not the one that should be talking. Okay? You shouldn't be saying anything. Like, I'm not going to let my wife be arguing with my mother. No. My rule is, if you have problem with her, don't exchange words. Come and talk to me. If she does something to you, don't exchange words. Don't, if she offends you, if she disrespects you, don't talk to her about it. You have to talk to me. This rule is supposed to apply to the wife and to the mother. Applies to the wife and to the mother. So if you, my wife, breaks this rule, there will be punishment. And you, my mother, if you break this rule, I'm not going to be very happy. And in some way or the other, there may be a punishment too. So peace has to be maintained. Somebody has to be the bad guy, and I am the bad guy. In order to be able to be who the Messiah wants you to be, in order for you to lead, some people will not like it. So in their eyes, you are the bad guy. You cannot let everyone do whatever they want in your family. There has to be rules and regulations, lines on the ground. There are some lines that cannot be crossed. So for me, one of those lines is that you don't exchange words with each other when there's a problem. When there's no problem, you can talk and laugh and be mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. You can do all that. But when you feel like this person offended you, insulted you, whatever, when there's a problem, no, you don't talk to them. You don't exchange word with them. You have to come and tell me what happened. And I will not take side. If my mother is wrong, I will tell her that she's wrong. If my wife is wrong, I will tell her that she's wrong. These are the two most important women in my life. The two closest women in my life. So I cannot be partial. I cannot take sides. I have to be in the middle. So again, you don't have much option right now. You don't really have much option. What are you going to do? You don't have much option when it comes to this particular issue right now. What are you going to do? Argue with her? Tell her that she's wrong? She doesn't know what you're talking about. She thinks you are, crazy because you're keeping the law. You cannot convince her. The more you talk, the worse it gets. Until she starts keeping the law, then she will see what is going on and she will be able to understand what you're doing. Until then, she has no idea what you're doing. She thinks that you're part of a cult and you're trying to keep the commandment. You're not supposed to keep the commandment and all that. So there's not much you can do other than to just hope that everything works out. And whenever a particular issue comes up, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's say she needs some help and she wants your child to come and help them on the Sabbath day. You're going to have to say no. Don't just say no. Tell her that you will love to help and you can send the kids any other day, but on that day you will not be able to send them. So don't just say no, but offer her that you can do it in any other day, but not on that day. Is she going to be happy? No. And that's what Yeshua was talking about in Matthew chapter 10 from verse 36. She will not be happy. That's why Yeshua said that there will be a problem between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. So if she wants you to do something on the Sabbath day, tell her that you can, if you can do it, if you can, but she's asking you to do it on the Sabbath day, Tell her you can't do it on that day, but you're willing to do it at any other day. So you just have to, it is what it is right now. You don't have much option. You just have to approach every single issue that comes up between her. You have to approach it wisely. Don't speak evil of her. Don't argue with her. Just be quiet. Don't even push her son to go against her. Don't do it. If her son is going to jump in, if her son will jump in to correct this, let him decide to do that. Don't be the one that will push him to do it. Again, I don't know the details. So I'm giving you a general counsel. So if don't push her son to get up and do something. No, because that will not be real. That will be fake. And that's gonna make this whole situation to be worse. And at some point, he will misunderstand it. So if he's gonna jump into to solve the situation, he's gonna have to decide to do it by himself, depending on what the situation is. I don't know the details of what's going on. So I'm going to ask you if you can give me specific examples, maybe 1 or 2 incidents. What exactly is she doing? What exactly is the problem? What is it that she's doing that if you can give me one example of that you don't like or that is creating problem, would you be able to give me an example like that?
Yes. Brother Tobiah, for example, remember I told you my grandma passed away? And then I told her that because of that, we can't go to church because the Bible said if you're unclean, we won't be able to attend church. And then she's like, oh no, what kind of nonsense is this? Why would you not be able to attend church? But yet she was sick. And then I took care of her when she was sick. And then she came and she said that, oh, I'm not going to go to your grandmother's funeral because I'll be unclean. And then I said, okay, it's fine if you don't want to go. That's no problem. And then she even, we go and we shop for the dress that I need for the funeral. On that Friday, she didn't go. It's no problem. She didn't go to the wake. Because I thought that she understood, and she started open up Shabbat with us when we thought Shabbat was the Saturday. And then every time that she finished to open the Shabbat, she even tried to go to church with us. And then she'd be like, oh, I'm not happy. That's not what Jesus asked us to do. You're not supposed to do that. And if the son tried to talk to her and says, Mom, this is what we're supposed to do, that if you're unclean, you cannot go to church or participate in holy things. She gets so mad about it, and she put her son down. I never tried to say anything until recently. She would not. What is this nonsense? Until recently, she would not. Even when I called, she would not pick up my phone. She would not pick up her son's phone, no matter what we tried to do or text. She just very mad, and then she would give me advice on how to be with her son, and then she go behind my back and tell her son the opposite of the thing, and her son was mad because he was thinking that he told me to be careful because he didn't like the way her mother was behaving, but that was his mom. So she was very cool with me, so I thought we were good friends, so there was no problem at that. And she tried to create a lot of division because she see that the son is trying to follow the law. Because I am the one that started, the trying to follow the law thing, and she was not having that because she was not having it.
Okay. So, in this case, this kind of issue, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. There is nothing new under the sun. At some point, things like this have happened in the past at some point. So example will be our Savior. So if you look at John chapter 7, you will see that if you start from verse 1, you see that at that point, our Savior was still living at home with his family. But what happened was that they were not keeping the law. So if you look at the way he talked to his brothers, you could see that there was a situation going on there, and he told them that the world cannot hate them, but the world hates him because he speaks against the world. So what does that mean? It means that they are worldly. So at some point, he just left. He left them, which led us to them finding him in a house where he was teaching. And they sent somebody to come in and tell him that they are outside. And then look at the response that he gave again. He said that his mother and his brother is anybody that hears Yah's law and keeps them. So we have a similar situation with Abraham. You can see that in the book of Jubilees. In Abraham, with his father, he was trying to get his father to keep the law. His father will not keep the law or worship the Most High. So at some point, even the Most High himself, as you see in Genesis chapter 12, the Most High himself was the one that told Abraham to get out. The Most High told Abraham to get out of his family. So the thing is, there are circumstances. There's just nothing you can do. I mean, in this case, your option is limited. You just have to handle every incident with wisdom. One of the best way to handle it is to talk less. Okay? Be very slow, talk less, listen more than you speak. So when she's doing something, listen more. That will allow you to be able to respond properly. Don't be like any other woman out there that you just listen. That person will not even finish talking. You are already running your mouth. That will make you to respond in a wrong way. And you will find yourself many times regretting things that you say. You will find yourself in a situation where you will say things because you got emotional and you regret it. So you have to respond with wisdom. Even when she's cussing you out, don't say anything. So you have to handle every single incident with wisdom, separately, as they come. You can't force people to keep the law. You cannot force people to keep the law. If they don't want to keep it, they don't want to keep it. So if they say that if they are making you to do something that is against the law, you just have to respectfully disagree or decline. You have to respectfully say no. So in this case, you just have to approach everything that comes up with her. Anything that comes up, you have to deal with it individually. That's the only option you have right now. Trying to respond the way that she's responding or talk back at her or whatever, none of those things will work. Your spirit is going to push you to do it. Don't do it. It's just a waste of time. It will not work. It will make the situation worse. So just, you understand what's happening. You know what's going on. You know that she's a Christian. You know that she's not keeping the law. You know that, so you know exactly what's going on. So just respond accordingly. As I know that a lot more stuff will come up in the future. Many more situations will come up. Just be one of the effective way, like as I said, is to listen more. Okay, don't just say things, just listen more and then respond according to what she said, and according to at any case, at any time that she wants you to do something that is against the law, you're going to have to say no respectfully. Just tell her that you're following. And I'm going to give you something too. Okay, when you deal with people, family members, I'm going to, you see, people love to shame other people. And this is something we learn from the Gentiles. We talk in a sarcastic way, to shame people. Like when people say, oh, you hate women, or you're misogynistic or whatever. They're trying to shame you, to shut you down, to close your mouth. But for me, is that the thing don't work on me. So the more you try to shame me, the more radical I become. Doesn't work. So you have to do the opposite. The best thing you can do is to shut your mouth. Because the more you try to accuse me of these things, when you accuse me, I agree. Whatever you say I do, I will agree that I do that thing. So you can't shut me down by shaming me. So people do this and they try to shame you. So when it comes to keeping the law, let me give you a tactics of what you can do. So you can turn the table on them. So that you can shame, like you don't mean to shame them, but you can, what they're trying to do is to say that you're crazy. So whenever something comes up and you say, no, I can't do that because it's against the Bible, they will be like, they will try to shame you. And that can be overwhelming, if you keep dealing with that situation. So here's what you're going to be saying. Whenever you're dealing with people, family members or anybody, and there's issue, even if you run into somebody in the store and you're having a conversation and you're telling them that you're keeping the law or whatever, always tell them that the reason why you're keeping the law. Tell them that you're doing this because Christ said so. Tell them that you're keeping the law because Christ said so. Always remember to say that, because you're not lying. I'm not going to ask you to lie. Whenever you discuss with somebody, always tell them the reason why you're doing this. I'm wearing my fringes because Christ said so. I'm using the moon to keep the Sabbath because Christ said so. Always say that. Why would you say that? And what makes it the truth? Why is it the truth? Well, it's the truth because in Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3, Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3, Christ told us to follow all the laws of Moses. Christ told us to follow all the laws of Moses. When Moses told us to keep the Sabbath, he did not tell us to keep the Sabbath on Saturday or on Sunday. Moses did not ask us to keep the Sabbath on Saturday or on Sunday. We're supposed to use the moon according to Genesis that was given to Moses. Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 16. Genesis 1:14 to 16. The Most High created the sun and the moon to be our calendar. The Most High created the sun and the moon to be our calendar. We're supposed to use it to keep the feast and the Sabbath. So whatever law that you keep and you're dealing with people, remember to mention, I am doing this because Christ said so. I have my beard because Christ said so. I'm wearing my fringes because Christ said so. So whatever law that you keep, this will help you a lot. You see, when you're dealing with people, your family members, your whatever, they want to shame you. They want to give the impression that you're crazy, you're following the Old Testament. We're not supposed to do that. So the best thing to say is that I am doing this because Christ said so, and you are supposed to be doing it too. I'm wearing my fringes because Christ wore his fringes, and you should be wearing your fringes too. I'm keeping the Sabbath because Christ kept the Sabbath, and you should be keeping it too. Because most people agree that Christ did not break the law. People will tell you that Christ was not a sinner. They will say that he was not a sinner. They are right. So if you say that he was not a sinner, that means that he kept the Sabbath. That means that he did not keep all the laws. So whenever you talk with people, tell them, I am keeping the Sabbath. I'm doing this because Christ did it. I'm keeping this law because it doesn't matter the law you keep. Any law you keep, I'm doing it because we have to do it, and Christ told us that we have to keep the commandment. And so you have to remember to talk about Christ. It's Christ that made you to do it. Christ encouraged you to do it. Christ says in Matthew chapter 9:13, Matthew 9:13, that he did not come for the righteous. He came to bring sinners to repentance. So Christ made me do it. Christ made me do it. I'm doing it because of Christ. And you should do it too. I'm wearing these fringes because of Christ. And you should wear it too. That will turn the table. So you are actually indirectly shaming them. That game that they're trying to play on you, you're now playing on them. Because if you do it right, they know that you're telling the truth. If you can remember to quote Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 to 3, Christ said that we have to keep all the laws of Moses. Why aren't you doing it? You have to do it too. This will help you a lot, and you will see all those that want to shame you, all those that want to, insinuate that you're crazy, you're going to use it to shut them down. You will turn that table on them. Because you're not just saying, you're saying that I'm doing this because Christ said so. Oh, why aren't you going to the church or going to funeral or going to church? And you're like, oh, I'm unclean. And then you tell her, I am mom or mama. I'm observing the law of clean and unclean because Christ wants me to observe it. Because Christ said that we should observe it, and you should observe it too. Going to church on that day will be going against Christ. I'm keeping this law because Christ wants me to keep it too. That's why I'm doing it. I'm following the laws of Moses because Christ said so. Where does he say so? Why? Where? Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. Revelation chapter 22, verse 14. Christ said that those that will be allowed into the kingdom are those that kept the commandment. The commandment that he's talking about is the law of Moses. Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. So always remember to let them know the reason why you're doing what you're doing. You're doing it because Christ said so. I'm keeping this law because Christ said so. I'm following this law because Christ said so. I'm covering my hair because Christ said so. Because Christ gave us a general commandment in Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. Matthew chapter 23, he gave us a general commandment. He said that the scribes and the Pharisees sit on the seat of Moses. The scribes and the Pharisees are teaching the law of Moses. Therefore, whatever thing they teach you, observe and do it. That's the commandment right there. That was the commandment from Christ to us. He said that the scribes and the Pharisees are teaching the law of Moses. So therefore, whatever the scribes and the Pharisees teaches you to do, do it. But don't look at their behavior, because they are teaching the law of Moses, but they are not practicing the law of Moses. So always remember to do that. Whenever you have people who are opposing you, who are trying to shame you, who are trying to give impression that you're crazy because you're keeping the law, or whenever you tell them about a law, whenever they want you to break the law and you say, no, I can't come on that day because that day is a Sabbath day. I can't do this because I'm unclean. And they all jump, tell them right away, oh, I'm doing this. Say it respectfully. Don't be rude. Don't be wild. Don't be like a normal, black woman. Don't do that. Be respectful. Just respectfully tell them, Mama, I'm doing this. I know you may not understand this. I wish you will understand this. The reason why I'm doing this is because of Christ. I cannot go to that church on that day. I cannot do this on that day because I'm unclean. I cannot come to help you move that thing on that day because that's a Sabbath day. And Christ tells me to keep the Sabbath. Always call Christ. Always refer to Christ. Always claim that Christ told you to do it. Because you know what? He told you to do it. And that's found in Matthew 23. So you have to say that. And if you remember, always add in. When you blame Christ and say that Christ made you to do it, remember to tell them that they have to be doing it too. Mama, I cannot do it because I'm observing the law of clean and unclean. And Christ told me to keep all the laws of Moses, including the one about clean and unclean. And Mama, you're supposed to do it too. You're supposed to obey Christ too. I'm telling you, you will shut them down by acting like this. They will not be able to respond properly. They wouldn't know what to say. Because they're trying to suggest that you're crazy by following the laws of Moses. And here you are telling them that you're doing it because Christ said so. And that they themselves are supposed to be doing it. Watch their response whenever you do this. Watch how they respond. They will be confounded. It will take them time to be able to figure out what to say. Because they are trying to say that you're crazy. They're trying to say that you shouldn't be observing those laws because of New Testament. That's what they're trying to say, right? So now you're telling them that you're doing it because of Christ. And not only are you claiming that you're doing it because of Christ, you are also accusing them of disobeying Christ. So you're turning the table on them. You are indirectly shaming them. They are trying to shame you. Now you're shaming them indirectly.
And most of the time, they will not be able to respond. They wouldn't be able to, because you're catching them off guard. People don't expect you to do this. They are expecting you to start quoting Leviticus. Oh, I'm doing this. I'm not going to come that day because in Leviticus, it says that we shouldn't do this when we are unclean. That's what they expect. They are expecting you to start quoting the Old Testament, quoting the Torah to defend yourself. You're turning the table on them. You're quoting the gospel. You're quoting Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. You're saying that you're growing your beard because of what Christ says in Matthew 23. And oftentimes, they have no idea what Christ said. So they are confounded. It takes them time to be able to figure out what to say. So you are on top. Whatever that thing that they're trying to do to you is a psychological warfare, psychological battle. If you always respond this way, you will be ahead and above for all those that want to do this to you. They want to bring you down psychologically. They want to shame you. Because first of all, they are not familiar with Matthew 23 verse 1 to 3. They've never read it. They are not familiar with it. They have no idea what it says. So not only are you saying that Christ made you to do it, or you're doing it because of Christ, you are also accusing them. You will say something like, I'm doing this because Christ told me to do it. I'm doing that because Christ told me to do it. It's Matthew 23 verse 1 to 3. And you should be doing it too. That's not good that you're not doing it. You're supposed to be doing it. I'm doing it because Christ said so. And you should be doing it too. It takes people a while to be able to realize, to come up with something. The next thing you're going to hear is, where did Christ say that? Where? Let me see. I did something similar. I was talking with somebody the other day, and he made a statement. I was trying to, we're talking, and in his mind, he thinks that, of course, he might think that I'm crazy or something. And when I did this, when I told him that I'm doing these laws because Christ said so, and I quoted Matthew 23, he was like, let me see it. Where? So he wanted to see it. He's supposed to be a Christian. He's supposed to be going to church. So when I said that I'm doing these things and we're supposed to be doing it, we're supposed to be doing it because Christ said so. He wanted to see it. And I took my phone. I go to Google and I type in Matthew 23, verse 1 to 3. I went to a translation that is like the one that he can easily read, that is not, hard to understand, and he saw it. But you can read whatever translation you want to read. It still says the same thing. The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. They are teaching the law of Moses. So therefore, whatever they teach you in the law of Moses, do it. But don't look at their behavior, because they're teaching the law of Moses, but they're not practicing it. So when you do this, people will be confounded, and that will, that just neutralize that shaming that they're trying to do. But getting back to the question of your mother-in-law, like as I said, your option is very limited. And you have to handle every single situation one by one as they come. Use wisdom. Don't talk too much. Be gracious. Be nice. Be polite. You could have been her. You could be her. If you are a Christian and your son is marrying a woman who is talking about keeping the law, when your pastor is telling you that you don't have to keep the law, what would you think? You would think this. You act the same way. So you have to use that understanding to understand where she's coming from. Understand, give her a break and don't be confrontational. Handle every situation, every incident one after the other, one by one. You just used wisdom. Okay? So all praises to our Heavenly Father. I hope that you are able to handle this, and hopefully her eyes will open and she'll be able to start keeping the law. And don't forget to use what I told you, which is, whenever something comes up about keeping the law and she's trying to suggest that you're crazy, always remember to give the reason. People don't do this, and that's not good. Okay? People don't do this. And what happened is that you are very much isolated. Everywhere you go, when you discuss with people about the Bible, you end up looking like you're crazy. When you have conversation with people, you end up looking like you're crazy. And at some point, it becomes depressing. Okay, knowledge is power, and the knowledge of the Most High is the greatest power you could have. Okay, knowledge of the Most High. So what I'm giving you here is the knowledge, so that you will no longer feel depressed. Rather, when you talk with people, they are going to end up being depressed. So if they want to shame you, they're going to end up being shamed by simply giving the reason why you do what you do. When people see you that you're saying that you're keeping the law, these are people that have been brainwashed. People that have been deceived. So they think you're crazy. So don't forget to tell the reason why you're doing what you're doing. I am doing the Sabbath using the moon because Christ said so. We are supposed to keep the Sabbath according to the God's calendar, the sun and the moon. And Christ told us to follow all the laws of Moses. Try and memorize Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 to 3. Try and memorize that, and all the other places too, like in Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 to 19. Matthew 5, 17 to 19, where it says that as long as you see heaven and earth, all the laws are still in effect. Like Revelation chapter 22, verse 14, where it says that the only people who will be allowed to come into the kingdom of the Most High, or to come into the kingdom, are those that kept the commandment. Try and memorize that scripture, but always remember to give the reason why you do what you do. You are going to be encountering people that think you're crazy. People that have been taught that we don't have to keep the law. You are going to be encountering them at your job, at anywhere you go. You are going to come across people that see you keeping the law. They always remember to explain why you do what you do, and that explanation is very simple. I'm keeping the law because Christ said so. And why aren't you doing it? Why? Just act. Just be like, this is why I'm doing it. So whenever you are doing something and somebody asks you or whatever, or the law comes up and they find out that you're keeping the law and they are not familiar with that law, always tell them that you're doing it because Christ wants you to do it. And then you remember to throw in, how come you're not doing it? You have to do it too. Christ wants us to keep God's law. We are supposed to keep God's law. So always remember to remind them that you are doing it because Christ said so, and they should be doing it too. When you start doing this, you begin to feel a lot more better because people will no longer be able to shame you. How can they say something when they haven't read Matthew 23? They have to read it to respond. And as time goes on, you're going to run into people that want to read it right there to see. And when they read it, they will see that Christ said that the Pharisees are teaching the law of Moses. Therefore, whatever they teach us, that we should do it. And Christ was talking to his disciples. So we have to keep God's law. We have to keep all the laws. So remember to always give reasons why you do what you do. Always remember. And a lot of the time, these people will be left confounded. They wouldn't know how to respond because they are expecting you to tell them, oh, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, to tell them that you're doing it because no, now you're really, really coming in a way that they don't see you coming. So you catch them off guard psychologically. So all of a sudden, they are the one that looks bad because they're not obeying Christ. They're not wearing their fringes when Christ wore his fringes. They're not keeping the Sabbath when so you're not doing it in a rude way. Do it in a very nice way. You've made your point. Your point is that I'm doing this. It may seem strange to you, but you have to do it too because Christ said so. I'm following Christ. I'm following the words of Christ. So all praises to our Heavenly Father. Thank the Most High for his love and his kindness, for giving us this wisdom. So sister, do you understand what I explained? Like as I said, there's really not much you can do right now because you just have to handle every situation with wisdom, okay? And hope that things will work out and that
going on. So do you understand what I explained?
Yes, Brother Tobiah. Thank you so much. You gave me great insight. Thank you.
Okay.
So all praises to our Heavenly Father. I thank the Most High, and I hope that all the people out there who are dealing with this situation, I hope that you'll be able to, Yah will give you strength, and you will use wisdom to handle this situation. It's not something you can handle with force, or by quarreling, or by shouting, or by fighting. No, you have to use wisdom. And one of the best way to do it is the information that I gave you. Always remember to tell whenever something comes up and somebody wants you to somebody finds out that you're keeping the law and they are trying to suggest that you don't have to, They are trying to act like they are surprised. They're trying to act like, oh man, this is crazy. You're not supposed to do that. You're keeping the law. Whenever they do, always give them the reason why you do what you do. You're doing it because of what Christ said. You're doing it. You're keeping that law because Christ wants us to keep it. And Christ said that we should keep all the laws of Moses. And then they'll be like, where? Where did he say that? We'll take them to Matthew chapter 23. You know, so all praises to our Heavenly Father. I give the Most High all the glory and all the honor. We have to keep the Sabbath. We have to wear our fringes. We have to keep all the laws. Like my fringes, I have my fringes right here. I have my fringes. I'm wearing my fringes because Christ said so. I am wearing my fringes because Christ wore his fringes, and he said that we should wear our fringes. So every single law that Moses gave us, we have to keep because Christ said so in Matthew 23 verse 1 to 3. We have to keep all the laws of Moses. So all praises to the Most High. We have to also keep the Sabbath. For those that if you have any question about this, and you're more than welcome to contact, you have to keep the laws and the commandments, and expect that there will be battles, oppositions, and humiliation from your family members. But I hope that you'll be prepared psychologically. And one of the ways that you can win that battle is to always remember to refer back to Christ. You're doing it because Christ said so, and they should be doing it too. And Christ will reject them when he comes back, and if they don't do it. So I thank our Heavenly Father for everything. I give the Most High all the glory and all the honor for his love and his kindness.